Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast.
A simple warning. We know many of you are planning a wedding right now. We may be tempted to drop an F-bomb or other descriptive words. Keep this in mind if you have small children in the room or are on a Zoom call. You've been warned.
Be Engaged and Inspired Podcast.
Let's be honest, planning a wedding is tricky. And at Be Engaged and Inspired, we'll share our knowledge to help you navigate these tricky waters and leaving you feeling inspired.
The Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast is sponsored by EasyEventPlanning.com. They make planning any event fast and easy. EasyEventPlanning.com. And now your hosts, Kia and DJ Sam.
Yeah! All right. The noise you hear in the background is because we have reached our 150th episode.
Not your age.
Welcome to the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast. 150, Kia.
I know. It's a little crazy, considering that this started basically almost 4 seasons ago.
And it was just a vague idea, hey, let's go and do something.
If you knew how many times we recorded our first episode over and over and over and over and over and over again. Someday we should have a bloopers.
Yes, well, I'll try and get one. Just do an episode of all the bloopers. Most of them will be you because I don't make any mistakes.
Most of them will be me swearing, but yes.
So we started our podcast on February 27th.
Of what year, Sam?
2019.
That seems like an entire lifetime so far away.
It does. I mean, we just got through Christmas, and now we're heading into the new year. We're in the new year.
Yeah.
What am I talking about heading into the new year?
You blocked that out.
So our first guest was the lovely Heidi Hansen. She
Yep.
was the very, very first guest. We dragged her in here, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, it was a lot of kicking and screaming. Well, she runs Always and Forever Wedding Planning and also Heidi Hansen Photography.
Yes,
So
yes.
she gave us a lot of extra elements of information.
Absolutely. And then one of my favorite people that we had was Dave Noonan.
Yes, and last year, because we're in the new year, I helped Dave get married.
That's right, you did. Congratulations, Dave.
Exactly, but he was our most nervous, but it helps. Mimosas always help. That's what we've always found.
And the alcohol that you
That's the
seem to provide
mimosas,
you.
yes. I knew that as soon as he had a mimosa and took a deep breath, we were going to totally be fine. And he shared so much great information.
Fantastic. And another one of my favorite guests was Aaron Miller.
Yes,
Aaron Miller.
He was our
Miller.
He was our most repetitive and our noisiest. Aaron, if you don't know him, is amazing. He has an amazing sense of style.
He's an artist. He's not a photographer.
Exactly. Well, he is a photographer, but he has an artistic side of it. But he also has, he wears bracelets and rings, and this is all, we had to put blankets around him so he wouldn't hit the studio table.
And I took hours trying to edit that stuff
Oh,
out.
I'm sure. But he would nicely repeat everything over and over and over again.
Love you, Aaron. The person that made the most appearances, she now holds a record. Another episode from her is coming up shortly. And that's Michelle Dryden.
Yep, from Here to the Moon Travel and Destination Weddings Unlimited. But part of the reason why she holds that record is not necessarily her fault.
It is actually a technical error that happened, that we had to literally re-record her entire episode.
But her and I got lunch out of it because Sam made a boo-boo, so it's all good.
From that point on, I have never made any boo-boos.
No. Literally on our mics, it says, please check.
It's very expensive. And our very first sponsor was Chrissy B. And we'd like to thank Barrowbolt Jewelers for being our very, very first sponsor and trusting us to advertise for them.
And they're a great local company. There's so many amazing things you can get there. Plus, as we know, because we have a lot of local companies who are sponsors now, too. We do. Supporting that local is important.
Yep. And I've got to get a Chrissy B back in here because I'm sure stuff has happened in the jewelry industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Chrissy, if you're out there listening,
come on back. I promise I'll keep Sam under control.
The most genre of vendors that we've had are photographers.
But that's because Connecticut has so many.
Yes.
And they all hit different niches, artistic style, light, airy, romantic, fluffy, non-fluffy, fuzzy, whatever. It's just
standard. Yep. You know, you can get any type of photographer in Connecticut. Just do your research. Listen to this podcast, too.
Yeah.
And our only celebrity, other than you, Miss Kia.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm waving. I got my pageant wave going.
We had an ex-DJ, because Gary Byron used to be a wedding DJ, and he was on, I didn't make a note of which episode he was on, but right at the start of this podcast. And then he went on to WDRC's, their morning crew on 103.3. I think he does the morning show there now. So congratulations to you, Gary, and thank you for being our one and only celebrity.
Humoring Sam, basically.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so it is Wednesday.
Yes.
Because it's every Wednesday when we get together.
Yeah, just because it's the 150th episode doesn't mean to say that we're going to miss the Wedding Tip Wednesday, does it?
No. So before you share your Wedding Tip Wednesday, can we give a quick little shout out to our other local company sponsor?
You certainly will.
Wedding Tip Wednesday is brought to you by Emerge Cosmetics. Are you ready to emerge? A new line of luxurious lipsticks and lip glosses created with the intention of empowerment and coming into who you truly are. Strong, beautiful, and confident. Use the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast coupon code EBI10 at shopemergecosmetics.com for an instant 10% discount. That's coupon code EBI10 for 10% discount at shopemergecosmetics.com. Emerge as the true you.
Wedding Tip Wednesday is available on the Be Engaged and Inspired Facebook group page every Wednesday. Join the group for free. And the Wedding Tip Wednesday for today is listen to this great podcast. Yes, tell your friends. In fact, if you know somebody that's getting engaged.
Because the holiday seasons brings out the bling.
Oh, it does. New Year's Eve just passed. You know, a lot of people are getting married.
Valentine's Day around the corner.
Tell them that the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast is a fantastic addition to your research for weddings in Connecticut, the Northeast, and the entire world.
Well, yeah, but this is one of those things that's really important. A lot of times people will be like, well, look, I found this great price for photographers and they're only $500. Well, they're in like Texas in the middle of I don't know where. But listening to somebody or getting advice from somebody or having a resource that is at least regional makes a huge difference.
People who know the neighborhood, they know the facilities.
They know the industry.
Yes, that's what we do. We've been here, as we like to tell, we've got over 60 years of
that's mostly
combined. Combined
because I'm basically only
knowledge.
like 20. Okay.
And we know a lot of people.
We do.
And we have a lot of resources that we can call upon to speak about something. So this podcast is the Wedding Tip Wednesday, and listen.
Yes.
So don't forget to use the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast coupon code EBI10 at shopemergecosmetics.com for an instant 10% discount. That's EBI10 for 10% discount at shopemergecosmetics.com. Emerge as the true you.
So since we do this show every single season as we're coming to the end, we are going to recap some of our favorite guests that we've just had.
Yes. So firstly, Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year, Sam.
I'm still waiting for my gift.
Yeah. You have it. I poured it into your coffee. Okay, so our first clip, which was Cakes by Donna. Which episode was that, Sam?
That is episode 124.
Okay.
And that kind of covered some of the essential questions that you need to ask before you go to your cake person. What do they call them? Bakers?
Your bakery, your cake designers. I mean, nowadays there's a lot of things. They're your cake engineers, depending on what you're doing. And remember, her information is cakesbydonna.com. And you can also reach her at 860-345-8847. But listen, she's got a lot of great knowledge to share.
Because she does answer the question, what are fondants?
No,
It's another one. Actually, have a returning guest. They've been willing to come back,
and I am excited because
they brought cake again.
Yeah, you know me. So if it's cake, it's got to be Cakes by Donna. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Sam.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Was it a long drive?
It was really long. It was a half hour.
So how can people find you? Let's just begin that way.
Okay. On my website, www.cakesbydonna.com, which also leads you to an Instagram, which also leads you to over 2,000 wedding cake pictures.
That's a lot of cake.
That's a lot of pictures.
Yeah. So because you've been here before, we're going to now sort of focus a little bit more in this episode about helpful things that you wish couples knew, what they thought about when they're walking into a venue, all of this extra information. Because you've been doing this for so long, I'm sure you're full of knowledge. And a lot of our couples, usually it's like their first wedding and they have no idea what they're walking into.
So true.
Okay, so I start by finding out how many guests they have, and then I know we're going to deduct some of those because not everybody shows up. And then I guide them as to how many tiers they have. And once we pick out their cake, I look at their bride's dresses, I look at their florist, who the florist is, what color schemes they're using, their table setups, because I want my cake to be a showpiece, but I need it to flow with the rest of the room. One of my pet peeves is just delivering a cake and dumping it and running on a white tablecloth. So if it's down the shore and they're doing navy blues and the table's white and the cake's white, but it might have some navy blue on it here and there, I try to encourage my brides to maybe get a table runner. For instance, the other day I had somebody that said, Donna, do you know what Polish pottery is? And I said, I do. And so he came with a picture. Problem was, the picture that they came with was a fondant, which I realized as soon as they had said it to me on the phone, and I told them. But they weren't sure what a fondant was, so when they came in, I explained the difference, and it was very colorful, and it was not in their budget. So to compensate and still get their theme and idea into the wedding room, we went on Google, and we looked up Polish pottery table runners. And we found some, which is really cool to do under the cake and then bring some of those vibrant colors up with some fresh flowers. So the whole thing made a really nice picture. Then they talked about favors. I said, well, that's where you should get your Polish inspiration into maybe cookie favors that you give and you put it on a napkin and you make them oversized, maybe 5-6 inches. And edible favors, to me, are where it's at because we all have gotten tchotchke things that we put aside and say, one day I'm going to use it. I'm going to put a picture in that little 1x1, frame I have, but you never use it.
Nope.
No. And then there's always, how do I make my cake taller? Well, does the facility have a cake stand? If they do, great. If you are doing a fall wedding and maybe you want your cake more like woodsy, then let's get a styrofoam base that's bigger and let's go to Joann Fabrics and let's make a little woodsy base because they have all these really kind of cool things. And nobody knows it's not a wedding cake and it still gives an extra tier of, 4 or 5 inches. And it's unique.
So one of the things I do have to say for all of the brides who are thinking awesome, and I'm just going to go DIY something right now. Before you run off to do that, because as the wedding planner, sometimes I have to fix these DIY issues. You should 100% be having the conversation with your cake baker. What is this product going on? You can't just buy a box and stick a pretty heavy cake onto it because it will sink. And I will have to try to rescue it.
Usually, I will do the ordering, and I just charge them my cost.
There you go. Perfect.
Just so that I can make sure there are no mishaps like that, because I don't want to go running out either.
Yes. I once had a bride who ordered 2 little, Mickey Mouse figures, and she thought she would just stick them onto the cake. Those things were so heavy that Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse stood next to the cake because they were not, as soon as I lifted the box, I was like, oh my God. And they had not had the conversation with the facility about what you could place on top of the cake.
And I once had a bride that put bobbleheads on top of the cake. And because they're top heavy, they went down the side of the cake.
So they bobbled their way down.
Bobbled their way down.
But, so these are important things. So like you're saying, if you want to make your cake taller, it has to have the right type of base. And your venue may have a cake stand. I'm sure you have tons of cake stands. I know we have a bunch of them. Cake stands are the things you put the cake on, Sam.
Yeah, I know
and then the other question is, when you're looking at toppers, I'm sure you have this conversation too of what are you bringing? Is it something, how big does the top need to be?
Correct. Most of our cake toppers are 6 inches as far as the cake goes. I usually recommend something such as a initial because it gives height and it slenderizes the cake. But what you're seeing is a lot of picks these days, and which means I put flowers on top of the cake along with their pick, and they get the best of both worlds.
There you go. That works. That's an important thing. So
I'm going to ask a question before we do that.
Okay, then you ask a question.
You said about dropping off the cake at the venue. Do you have somebody that drops off the cake and then fixes the cake, or do you drop every cake off?
My delivery people have been with me for 20, 25 years. Right. They go around with spatulas. They've been groomed as to if there's any mishaps. However, I myself am always... I don't personally deliver because I'm on call in case there are emergencies. And because we can be in Mystic and Waterbury the same day or Newport or whatever, if there's an incident, I will drive up there and fix it myself.
Yeah, that's good service.
That is good service.
That's great service.
What you get when you work with somebody.
I've done over 30,000 wedding cakes. Okay, so with the 30,000 wedding cakes, you also learn from School of Hard Knocks.
So we're here with Cakes by Donna.
Yep.
And we're talking about things that we wish couples sort of took into consideration and what they, knew and when they're in this planning process. Obviously, they should come with some inspiration, correct?
It would be super helpful.
It'd be nice.
And they should also have obviously give you an update if they have any types of allergies and things like that, because you can take those into consideration.
Good point.
And is there an allergy or two that you can't, there's just nothing you could do for them, or do you make a different layer
really
for
funny.
them?
We were just talking about this the other day. When I started out, there were no allergies available. Yeah. It was bee stings. No big deal. Yeah. Had nothing to do with me. Then it became lactose intolerant. And all of my cakes are lactose intolerant. And now it's gluten-free. So what we do with brides that are gluten-free, a lot of times, they do not want the whole cake gluten-free.
Yep.
So what we will do is we will do a gluten-free cake topper for them, because that's what they get to be boxed and take home for their anniversary. And say it's chocolate with chocolate mousse and a layer of raspberries. We'll do the cake gluten-free. The fillings are gluten-free. And what we'll do is we'll take a cupcake, and gluten-free cupcake, tuck it behind the wedding cake with the filling on top. So the bride's eating the cake upside down, but she's taking it where she's not reaching up that distance for pictures.
Perfect.
That's clever.
But see, now that shows once again that you are an experienced cake baker.
Yep.
Because if you're working with somebody who might be new to the business or a novice, they wouldn't necessarily think about it.
They wouldn't even think about that. No, I've been pretty much entrenched in this business since I was 16 in all avenues of it. So I pretty much understand where everybody's coming from in their own attires, whether it's a florist or a DJ or a videographer. So I'm really conscientious about things like that.
And I think that's important. So obviously one of the other questions that you do ask is what's their facility, where they're getting married.
Of course.
Because obviously when you were here in the past, you were talking about making sure, cakes look good and where they are. And so you have to also know where your facility is, where they're going to put the cake, or if you are having a backyard wedding, where's that cake going to be?
Right. I'm on a lot of wedding packages. I cannot always control where the cake's going to be. However, I do try to pay attention, because I had an experience where I did a real special cake for friends of mine, and when I went to the wedding, the lighting was horrible, and they stuck it in an area that nobody even saw it. And it was a lot of hard work.
That's heartbreaking.
That is.
I also had another cake. It was 7 tiers. The customer was from New York City. The account was a country club in Connecticut. They have 2 separate rooms. They put the cake in the middle. Nobody saw it. It was all hand-molded flowers. It took me forever to do. And a mother of a future bride kept calling everybody over to see the cake because she knew what went into it.
Yeah.
And it was being missed. So a wedding cake is supposed to be part of your wedding and a focal point as well. It's great, and it's a super bonus when it actually tastes good and people finish it.
But then... What were you going to say, Sam? You're distracted by the cake. I know that,
No, as a matter of fact, I was just reminiscing back, because you made our wedding cake. I don't know if you remember that. You made our wedding. You're not going to remember what it looked like, but
I remember making your daughter's.
Yeah, and that was the second thing I was going to talk about. You made our wedding cake, and our wedding cake had 2-tier. A bottom.
Oh my God! You had a little bridge across.
No, we had stairs that went up to the top.
Oh God! He had the fountain one.
No. Don't get excited. There was stairs that went up to the top where the main cake was, and on top was
bride and groom.
Bride and groom, and it was a huge cake. The reason I'm saying that is that it brought back memories when you said it's the focal point, because that's what our cake was. Our cake was right in the center of the.
You had plastic stairs on your cake.
Well, I didn't know what they were. I didn't
they
need
were
them.
back then. Well, how many years ago, Sam, was that?
1990.
Yeah, back
I was
then,
also in high school
back
back
then.
then.
There were plastic pillars for dividers. I switched to pillars to, back then, champagne glasses upside down with a fresh rose in them, which was very elegant at the time. Now, of course, it's stacked cakes that are in now. You don't see dividers. If you do see dividers, they're usually a bling or something a little bit classier.
And not a fountain. I really think a fountain should not be in the middle of a cake.
You expected that I was going to have a fountain in the middle of my cake?
You know what? At this point in time, knowing where you proposed, which was in a bathroom,
nothing would surprise you.
Nothing would surprise me.
And the second thing I was going to say is that my daughter doesn't know any other cake baker other than Cakes by Donna, because she's made so many cakes for her birthday or graduation, and there was something else that we did.
Her wedding?
No. Please don't jinx me with that. Not yet. She's in North Carolina now. So do you ship to North Carolina?
We don't ship.
I'm sure if you just put it in the car for Sam's car, it'll be fine.
We'll drive. But
I'm due for a vacation.
That's how long you've been doing cakes. But I think it's a testament to your quality.
Exactly. And the fact that you're still here. And I do hate to bring up the topic that we've all dealt as wedding vendors for the past year, but obviously COVID happened, changed the world, but you're still here, and I think that's deeply important. I think some people who are smaller businesses or sort of fly by night, and this was like a side hustle, they couldn't continue to be here.
Absolutely, yeah.
I could be retired. I do it because I love it.
That's deeply key. So we're looking at a serving tray of more cake.
Yummy.
And just so other people can sort of understand what we're looking at, can you name what some of these are? And Sam, you don't get first pick.
One of the reasons that we have a great reputation is because the cakes are moist, but our fillings are very light. Almost like a whipped cream base, but once again, they're lactose intolerant. And so when you dig into them, you're not digging into a dark decadent or a heavy cheesecake and saying, oh my God, I'm full. They're light enough that you'll continue to eat. So what you have here is you have a strawberry cream and strawberries with a white cake. You have a lemon cake with lemon mousse and a layer of raspberries.
Right, you're going to have to point these out as you go through them.
And when I tell my brides,
that one.
If they don't want raspberries, the big word is custom, that if they want blueberries, they can have blueberries.
Oh, pretty.
This is a chocolate
what's in the middle of that one?
This is the
That's
lemon.
a strawberry cream.
Oh, strawberry cream.
Okay.
This is unique. We're bringing it back. It's an orange Grand Marnier with strawberries. It tastes like a creamsicle.
Mine.
We have a funfetti. We have a marble mocha cappuccino mousse, which tastes almost like a tiramisu, which if they want to add cannoli filling or Oreo cookie filling or whatever. You have an almond there with toasted coconut. That I brought out to California. And all I heard
she does
was,
travel.
Oh.
I traveled with the cake.
Wow.
That was a funny story. But
that'll be for our mishap and sharing story part of it.
But all I heard was I had 3 pieces or 4 pieces. So the cakes are very light, and that's what's so nice about them.
Okay, now what about carrot cake?
We do carrot cake. My carrot cake is phenomenal. I don't push it, only because carrot cake on its own is a little heavier. So, yes, I do it. However, I have what I call a spice cake. That's awesome.
Oh.
And that's very light. And with that, I either do a praline cream filling, I do a chocolate mousse filling, which is a surprise for people with spice cake, or I do a spice whipped cream with or without apple pie filling.
Oh, you got to have the apple pie filling.
So you're getting that lightness as opposed to a heavier. Once again.
So traditional, what would be a traditional?
There's no such thing as traditional.
No more.
Really? Seriously?
No, not in this day and age.
No.
Wow.
The fact that there's a cake is the tradition. There you go.
Right. Back in the day, you would have probably said, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking back in the 70s when I was a kid, in waitressing, you probably would see a lot of cherry nut or fruit cakes. And most of the time, they were dry.
I think that's like a requirement if you're a fruit
And
cake.
that's why people complain that they
Don't
didn't
eat
like
the cake.
Exactly, because now you have all these different variants.
I left you a tiny piece of this one.
I'll
It is
try
amazing.
It. I'll
It is
try
amazing.
I'll try
So when I started my business, the sales part is one thing, but I have to make sure that I'm selling a quality product. So I worked on my products to make sure the frosting wasn't overly sweet and the cakes were light and moist.
Oh, this is delicious.
But that's key, too. It's because when you're going in for a tasting, and this is one of the things that we say to people when they're going in to meet with a caterer, we ask them to say, who's your chef? Is this the same chef you're going to have on that day? Mm-hmm. So whatever they're having during their tasting is the same thing they're going to get.
Absolutely.
And that's important.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now, what's the...
That's a funfetti.
That's funfetti.
That's funfetti. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my daughter would like that.
I think lots of people would like that. And I think it's a fun part to add to a wedding cake when you're not expecting it.
Now, we also do a cake that's, it's a strawberry champagne.
I was going to say, what's the most different cake?
Instead of using water, we use champagne.
Oh, that's got to be great.
It is. It's got a little tinge to it. It's good.
No, I love it. I love that idea.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is you're saying that it's there is no right or wrong. And you can really say, you can have one tier this and one tier this, and you can really go as nuts as you need to go planning this.
That's a good question that everybody asks me. Can we do different tiers? That's a very, very popular question. That's a question that a lot of my brides and grooms ask me. From my waitressing days, serving the cake, you start with the head table and then the family table, and then you continue front to back. So everybody gets the same thing, which is kind of nice because when they get the same thing, they're all talking about the same thing.
That's true.
When they realize people are funny, when they realize that somebody got something that they didn't, sometimes it's like,
why didn't I get it?
Now, once in a while, you'll have a caterer and they'll say, well, we'll cut up separate pieces and we'll just put a bunch on the table. Well, that works. Except once in a while, you get that person that doesn't know somebody at the table and they're the last ones to grab, and they're grabbing something that they didn't like and they were disappointed, and you're not really there to disappoint your guest. If it's something that you and your groom are disputing, then by all means go with different flavors, and I'm happy to do different flavors. It's just my take on it from
but
waitressing.
It makes sense. I mean, because it is the thing that, you're not... I would find it weird if I'm sitting here eating something that has strawberries and I look over at Sam and he's chowing down on a funfetti. I might be like, whoa, wait, I would have rather
Or can I get a piece of that? Oh, I'm sorry, we're out. Because cake tiers are... different sizes.
Yeah.
So they go from, feeding a lot of people to a little, and maybe you only had 20 people for that piece of cake instead of 100.
Now, do you have like a sheet cake that you would do in the back in the old days?
I don't cheat like that. To me, that's
Sam?
a cheater's thing. I do things first class. So in saying that, if you did have 200-300 people and you didn't want a huge cake because of either budget or because it looks awkward, I will do a regular cake, just like your wedding cake, in the back of the house with just frosting on it. But you're not going to get a 4-inch cake from me with filling and then a sheet cake in the back that's 2 inches that looks like a different size. I don't do that. Right. I do it the right way.
Because it's cheating, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that, like you said, this just demonstrates the fact that she's been doing this for a really long time. You know what you're doing. And when people are coming to you, they're not just getting great cake. They're also getting experience, knowledge, and everything else.
And again, you could say, well, let's do different flavors. Let's put it up with coffee. People can get up and get their own. Generally, that doesn't happen. And you end up with a lot of waste factor because people don't get up to get their own. I actually was at a friend's wedding about a year ago, and the bride decided to hold off the cake and coffee. We got no coffee served after our meal, so we got up. We went chit-chatting at different people's tables, and about an hour and a half later, we found, they're serving coffee. We're in the middle of a conversation. Now we got to go back to our table if we want cake and coffee.
Yeah.
And I thought, this really isn't the way to do things.
So this is a little bit of a bone of contention with Key and I. I am old school. I prefer to have the cake served right after dinner. We do the cake cutting, and then it's served, and then we do some dancing.
And move on with the festivities.
Exactly. Kia, new school.
I'm not new school. I'm just saying we usually do dinner after the last table has been served. We usually have couples get up and do their parent dances, mostly due to the fact that if they have children who are there, or if they have any elderly grandparents who might not make it to the end of the night, they get to still see that part of it. And then that also gives catering a moment to clear everything from the table, and then we can go to cake and coffee. My reasoning for that is because I do not like it when there is a table still finishing up their food, and this table very clearly is getting their coffee and cake. I think it makes the person who already was the the last table to be fed. It makes them uncomfortable to see like the next stage of food.
In my opinion, from waitressing, there should be a time schedule in between that where you're not pulling food from people's tables.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But I think that's why I always, when I'm talking to our couples and trying to figure out what they're doing, this is where Sam and I dispute. Because
it's not a dispute. There's two schools of thought. Neither of them are wrong. It's just a different...
So once again, please share how people can find you.
www.cakesbydonna.com and click on that blinking Instagram button.
Help us out. Make a donation now to help support this podcast. Please go to our anchor.fm profile, click Support This Podcast at the top of the page, or use the link in the show notes of this episode, or go to the Atmosphere Productions business profile on Venmo. Thank you for making a donation and helping support this podcast.
The Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast will be right back.
Dollar Tree is the nation's #1 destination for value shopping. All of their stores are well lit and crammed with all kinds of hidden treasures. Dollar Tree offers a plethora of merchandise that includes many national and regionally trusted brands. It doesn't matter if you're looking for housewares, dinnerware, candy, snacks, stationery, or holiday needs. You're going to find it at Dollar Tree. You can shop at your hometown store or shop online for exclusive offers, manufacturer closeouts, watch videos, and join their Value Seekers Club. On top of all that, you can have your order shipped for free directly to your local store. To visit DollarTree.com, click on the link in the show notes to let them know we sent you. Doing so helps keep our podcast going. Dollar Tree.
Hey, Sam, when it comes to finding the right professional vendor, it can seem overwhelming to know where to start.
It can, Kia, unless you use EasyEventPlanning.com, because they'll find perfect vendors for your event within your budget and deliver them right to your inbox. You can search through over 28 categories of party and wedding services. Get the details you need to narrow down your choices quickly with their category-specific profiles. Chat with vendors via text, audio, or video from any device.
EasyEventPlanning.com will make planning your wedding or event easy, from their extensive vendor directory to their free tips on favors, decorations, themes, and more. Contact them today at EasyEventPlanning.com.
Emerge Cosmetics. Are you ready to emerge?
I love this lipstick. I'm super picky about how a lipstick feels. Most are either too dry feeling or feel like you've oiled your lips. This not only felt great, but lasted and looked great hours later. The color Angelina is perfection, a must-have in my collection.
This is Lauren Simpson from Emerge Cosmetics, a professional makeup artist with over a decade of experience in the beauty industry. That's the reaction we're getting from our new line of carefully curated lip products that wear well and feel comfortable. These are a must-have for your collection. All products are made in the USA, cruelty-free, gluten-free, and most are vegan. Shop EmergeCosmetics.com for lipsticks and lip glosses that not only feel great, but last for hours in an array of different colors. Free shipping on orders over $100. Use the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast coupon code EBI10 at ShopEmergeCosmetics.com for an instant 10% discount. That's coupon code EBI10 for 10% discount at ShopEmergeCosmetics.com. Emerge as the true you.
Now back to the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast, sponsored by EasyEventPlanning.com. They make planning any event fast and easy. EasyEventPlanning.com with your hosts, Kia and DJ Sam.
Welcome back. We're still here at Be Engaged and Inspired, the podcast. And we're going into another one of our favorite episodes from our last season. Which number is this, Sam? Because you know these numbers way better than me.
Yeah, so this was a kind of a serious episode, number 133. 133, you can go back and check that. How to honor a deceased relative?
Family member? Someone you want to remember.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed stuff like saving a seat, playing a song,
putting something that was memorable to them onto a seat or at the table or something,
or wearing something.
I don't necessarily think. I mean, it was a deep conversation. It's not an easy conversation, but I think if you start having the conversation now before, the night before the wedding, is not the time to be like, oh crap. Okay, so let's listen to this clip.
I don't like when Sam points at me at the end of that part of it. Okay, so our topic is ways of remembering or honoring people who are no longer with us, or people who can't come because whatever health reasons or something else is going on.
Yes, I saw in a forum, and I don't usually hang out in forums because I don't like to, but I did see that somebody had posted that their dad had recently passed away and he couldn't attend the wedding, and they'd like to have some way of honoring him. So I said, you know what? I know Kia has got a lot of answers to that question, so let's do a podcast on it.
Can we just spit them all out right now?
Let's do them one at a time instead of vomiting them all out.
Okay, fine. So I've had people whose father is no longer with them, who would have walked them down the aisle, who have decided to walk alone, and it has been put into their program that they're walking alone down the aisle because their dad is there with in spirit. I've had people walk...
Well, hold on. Did they play I Walk Alone as she walked down the aisle? Oh, okay.
No, all by myself. No, I'm kidding.
That's an even better one. Eric Carmen, 1976.
Okay, see, this is where my brain is like, what? No. The other part has been walked halfway or got to the beginning of the aisle and lit a candle, and then had like a brother or somebody else walk them down, but doing that sort of candle lighting, and then the candle gets moved somewhere, in the wedding reception area next to a photo or something.
And it's used as a prized item of
yes.
Yes, very good, very good.
Yep. I've seen people place, like, you and I were at a wedding where the gentleman had lost his father, so his mom carried one of his prized possessions down the aisle and placed it where his seat would have been.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
It was a camera.
Oh, that I remember. Mm-hmm. That was why they did that? You see, that went right over my head.
Yep, that is why. So everybody who knew him knew that was why, because he was always with his camera.
Yep. There's another variety on that one that somebody mentioned, was that if dad or whoever had passed away had a favorite number, like they like hanging out at the casino and they have a favorite number, you print up that number and you put it on the chair or wherever they would normally see it, and the camera took that place. I didn't catch that. Thank you for pointing that out many months after that reception.
But I've also seen people carry their father's fireman hat down the aisle. I've seen people carry the police hat down the aisle or the military service type of thing. So there's those types of things in the aisle. Part of it, I've seen a lot of it. I've also seen brides who've walked down and lit the candle halfway. There's a really big, huge cathedral in Hartford, and it sort of is broken into like stages. Mm-hmm. So the bride walked by herself to about halfway in the cathedral, and then lit a candle at where her mom's picture was, and then walked to the next break because of it being so large, and then her father picked her up and she walked the rest of it.
So could you do that if they had brothers or sisters? Like the brothers would walk halfway down and they'd make the exchange? Oh, that's nice.
So
I like that.
I've seen groomsmen do where they were carrying lanterns for people who had passed and put them up on a ledge when they got there, the groomsmen, because bridesmaids already have things in their hands and doing stuff. So they carried, the bride had lost her brother unexpectedly probably 2 months prior, and then they had some grandparents and other things. So the 4 or 5 groomsmen that they had all carried a lantern that had a candle in it with a picture of it, and they just brought them up and sort of decorated around the altar type of thing. But it wasn't, it wasn't hugely overdone. It was just something nice, and later on we transferred it to a different part.
That is so nice and touching.
It's touching without being like...
tear-jerking.
Or wailing or any type of those things. So there's ceremony-wise, there's lots. I've seen roses on chairs. I've seen the person who's running it sort of mention the special relationship. I think sometimes that's harder for some people, especially depending on how soon it was since somebody...
What do you mean mention?
Like I've seen priests or the JP sort of bring up the topic. So I think that's always that's a hard one.
That's on the line. I usually recommend to my clients that you do that before at the rehearsal or something, but not necessarily at the ceremony. Or if you're going to do a toast, briefly mention it, but don't make it a Debbie Downer, because it will definitely bring sadness to the event if you spend 2 or 3 minutes, although you want to honor, at the reception. That really is not the right place to do it.
And, I hesitate when people want to do like a slideshow tribute. Those are...
I've seen those.
They can get very emotional very quickly, once again, depending on the type of person. Now, if you're mixing in childhood photos and you're throwing, some photos of these people who are no longer with us type of things in.
All right, but this is at the reception.
This is at the reception.
Right, I want to kind of stay on the ceremony.
But here's the thing is, I've also seen it done playing in the background of the ceremony while people are waiting.
Yes.
Seeing childhood photos and things like that up on a slideshow that then stops when the ceremony starts.
Yeah. That is nice. I've seen that
That one I can do because typically the person who's most affected by it isn't in the room. People are sort of reminded that the person is no longer with us or can't attend. I mean, I've had, people whose grandparents can't leave the nursing home or for whatever reason.
Yep.
I've seen couples who have, prior to the ceremony, done their first look wherever their grandparents' retirement home is, which I think is sweet.
That's nice. Hey, any other things that you've seen that they've done before the ceremony?
Yeah, I've seen people who knew somebody was going to pass. So they did like a special thing with their photographer of like dad seeing their daughter in their dress for her fitting and somebody taking pictures because they knew that the odds were not in their favor.
Yep.
Or the same thing with like grandparents have gone to be in that little part of it. So they still have that and that gets shared and placed somewhere.
Yep.
Like I had a COVID redo wedding where they did get married. And the dad did walk her down the aisle, but he unexpectedly passed before they got to do their redo one. So they did, but they thankfully had their photographer, which we always say is key.
Yes.
It wasn't an iPhone photo. It was an actual photo. And they printed it out. And the dad was, of course, beaming and still walked her down the aisle.
Yep.
And the picture was there.
Yep.
I've had a bride whose dad couldn't be there because of COVID and couldn't travel. He was longest resident of an Airbnb, just timing-wise. That's what happened to the poor gentleman. He had to stay where he was because Connecticut wasn't letting people back in.
Yep.
So they included doing like a first look that was photographed with him seeing her over Zoom.
Oh, that's nice.
And then attending sort of the wedding over Zoom or FaceTime or however they did it. And the JP sort of asked the dad if he had any words that he wanted to say, and he said something. So those are slightly two different things, but they're not really.
No, I also like kind of going on what you were talking about is with that picture. Is it possible for the bride then to walk with the picture of her dad down the aisle?
She's got other things in her hands, but you can put it in the seat. You can put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, that sounds like a great idea, except you don't want a cumbersome you're putting it up and where's it going and who's taking it.
But it's nice. She's walking down with a picture of dad as she's going.
And you've seen like people who on their bouquet they've hung little trinkets of their grandparents or their dad or their mom.
I was going to mention that. You took that right out of my mouth. As usual, you see, all these things.
No, just trinkets tied in. It might be dad's handkerchief that the flowers have been wrapped in.
Yep.
Or they'll have like a little picture of their dad or grandparent or whoever in a little frame that's tied to their bouquet.
Yep.
Sometimes they'll get like their dad's favorite shirt, like a heart or something sewn into the side of their dress since they can't be there.
I've heard of things on the shoes that you put a little picture on the shoe that
I've seen that part.
It's not as effective, but I'm just telling you what I read. I've never seen it.
I've seen somebody try to do it, and then it just didn't
doesn't work.
I have a trouble sort of wanting to remember somebody by swishing them like under the ground. Like I don't.
Yeah,
I know
they're.
And then like on the back of it, nothing feels worse than something's hitting like the back of your foot. That's just me personally.
It's just you personally.
Yes, but I've seen people like wear their parents' wedding bands around their neck because they're no longer with them while they're going down. I've actually seen couples who have taken their parents' wedding bands who are no longer with them and created their wedding bands from it.
That's nice.
Each week, the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast posts a new episode sharing wedding tips, knowledge, and speaking with wedding experts, all as a chance to help you navigate your way through planning your own wedding. Have a topic you want us to cover? Want to send us a message? Email us at engagedct@gmail.com, go to the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast Facebook group page, or on anchor.fm and select message. Your message will be recorded and may be aired on a future episode.
The Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast will be right back.
Let Here to the Moon Travel be your go-to specialist to avoid the headaches and stress of planning your trip. Hi, this is Michelle from Here to the Moon Travel. You can find us at heretothemoontravel.com. Travel and customer service is my passion, and having a one-on-one relationship is something that a virtual site really cannot provide. We are your personal booking resource for all your travel needs. We can assist with anything from your honeymoon, destination wedding, luxury travel, group, family, or corporate travel, and so much more. HereToTheMoonTravel.com.
Honey Fund, the world's #1 wedding registry. Honey Fund helps real couples realize their wedding and honeymoon dreams. Honey Fund's #1 online wedding gift registry makes it easy to give and receive the perfect wedding gift, one that reflects the couple's unique style and makes giving fun for the wedding guest. As the world's most popular crowdfunding site for weddings, honeymoons, and more, Honey Fund has helped hundreds of thousands of couples make their wedding dreams come true with an easy-to-use funding platform. Honey Fund, a gift card wedding registry that's as flexible as cash. Use the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast link in the show notes or visit atmosphere-productions.com. Select the podcast link and click on the Honey Fund banner. That's atmosphere-productions.com. Select the podcast link and click on the Honey Fund banner.
Meadowbrook Estates and Mansion is located in Marlborough, Connecticut, perfectly situated between New York City and Boston. Our one-of-a-kind 10,500 square foot venue offers lodging for up to 30 guests and a stunning ballroom for intimate weddings. Looking to host a larger event? We have a gorgeous outside setting right next to our heated pool and small rambling brook. Contact us at Engage Connecticut for more details.
When your wedding entertainment has to have amazing music, be fun, organized, and professional, your choice has to be Atmosphere Productions. DJs, live musicians, custom lighting, and photo booths. As seen on the TLC TV series 4 Weddings, winner of the Wedding Wire Couples Choice Award and DJ Times DJ of the Month. Experience the difference. www.atmosphere-productions.com. That's www.atmosphere-productions.com.
Engage CT offers couples the opportunity to work with experienced wedding planners, one-of-a-kind wedding venues, along with design and wedding rentals. We plan real weddings for real couples. Located in West Hartford, serving all New England. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram under Engage CT and www.engagect.com.
On next week's episode, join me, Michelle Dryden, with Here to the Moon Travel, right here on the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast.
My wife and I are spending more time on our computer. It's changing the way we live.
Mostly for the better.
Like paying our bills.
Or researching vacation spots.
But there can be a downside.
Right, like fake drugs being sold over the internet.
Because they look real and they seem like a great bargain.
And you can't always tell what's a fake.
Well, we learned the hard way.
At the emergency room.
Thousands of people are scammed into buying counterfeit drugs every day, thinking they're getting a deal. And rather than contain the active ingredient, they may contain dangerous elements like antifreeze, sawdust, or floor wax, resulting in potentially serious health risks. So never buy prescription or over-the-counter drugs online from unknown or unlicensed sources, as they are often dangerous fakes. Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. To learn more, go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
Now back to the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast, sponsored by EasyEventPlanning.com. They make planning any event fast and easy. EasyEventPlanning.com. With your hosts, Kia and DJ Sam.
And welcome back to the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding Podcast, episode 150 with Kia and DJ Sam from Atmosphere Productions. And we're doing a kind of a flashback show that we do every year at the beginning of the year. We like to remind you of some of the episodes that you might have missed, and you can catch up.
Before we go into the next season.
Yes.
We're going into season 4, which for a itty-bitty podcast in the middle of nowhere of Connecticut is a pretty big thing.
And speaking of big things, you did a fantastic thing over the last season, which was your wedding planning secrets. It was the time that you pulled out your little notebook and you went through all the little secrets that you jot down.
I use the notebook for my daily life. Unfortunately, wedding life plays a leading role in my brain. So I don't actually need the notebook for that part. I need it for you do have children, feed the cat, walk the dog.
The eggs are things of life.
The eggs are done. All those types of things.
So episode 101 is the one you're going to take a listen to. Don't sweat the small stuff is one of the things that you talked about. And something that we did a full episode on was focus. Mm-hmm. Getting the bride and the groom or the couple to focus instead of drifting away on different topics. And that was very interesting.
We may need to recap that fully again for this upcoming season. But,
and
I digress.
Episodes 90, 93, 106, and 141. Those are the episodes that contain the other wedding planning secrets that...
and you're going to make me do this again in 2022, aren't you?
Oh, yes. I was going to cut you off last season, last year, but now we're going to wring the final drops of your secrets out.
No, it's never going to end. Okay, let's take a listen.
I think sometimes people get so lost in what's going on that, like, they're not enjoying the wedding.
The moment.
The moment.
Yes.
So, like, they're concerned because the centerpiece is, like, a little bigger than they had anticipated. Or, something like the napkins are the wrong shade or the wrong fold. Yeah. So if there's enough time to fix those issues, we fix them. But there's a point where no one's walking into your wedding saying, oh, Mary said they were going to have like a napkin fold that held the menu, and now the menu's sitting on top. Like
nobody knows this.
Nobody knows this. And that's like the small stuff. And the big stuff too, it can be really frustrating and it can be upsetting. But that's the thing, is if it's a bigger issue, we may have to handle it after the wedding. You shouldn't allow it to become something that consumes you so much.
Right. I get frustrated sometimes when I get a client in the middle of dinner and says, we got to get everybody up and dancing. Everybody's just sitting around doing nothing. Get everybody up dancing. I've got to kind of quieten them down and say, we can't dance with those tray tables all in the center of the dance floor. We can't dance with them bringing the food to the table, which they're doing now. If we had planned it before you coming up and yelling at me, we could have done something.
Okay, I yelled at you one time. No, I'm kidding. I yell at you all the time. But it is one of those things where sometimes you can get so stuck in the details or you're so looking at just the big picture and you're not seeing all the great things too. So this is a balance.
Yeah, it is. It is. If you're hiring professionals, as we always say, they know how to massage situations to make them work to your advantage.
And sometimes there might be something that you're not 100% aware of. Like I once had a cake person. There's 2 weddings going on in the facility, and the cake person was bringing them for both, but one started significantly earlier than the other one. They came right at the last minute with the cake for my wedding, which I was not happy about.
No.
And when I had called, they said there had been an accident, and I think it's up in the air. Yeah. And when the cake person came, they said, no, on my paperwork, it just says right here that not to deliver, so I only had to come out once. And when the bride kept going, can I see a picture of the cake? Can I see a picture of the cake? I said, not yet.
Yeah.
And there are some things, focus. Speaking of things to focus on, you do not have to plan a wedding all at once. You can take your time.
Not all in one day.
No. Some days it's nice if you only have like one day. You can come into our office or our warehouse and you can meet with multiple vendors. But it does not mean that you have to make all those decisions right now. When you say, hey, like, what's going to be your first dance song? You're not saying, like, figure it out right now, have it choreographed, and, like, boom, go. You're sort of making the suggestions of things for them to start to think about.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a process to it.
I've had clients that have changed their first dance just before the introduction of the bridal party.
Well, see? That's maybe planning-wise, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
It makes me uncomfortable, but... it happens.
It does happen. And it is one of these things where we seem to have people who don't want to plan it all or want to plan everything at once. And sometimes that's how you can get a little bit of like buyer's remorse.
Yes.
If you're rushing through and somebody says, if I say Sam is your person and they meet with Sam and maybe you end up not being the right person, I don't want them to feel like not working with you unless you're working with Sam. That's not a great...
No, in fact, speaking of that, I saw one of the message boards a couple of days ago. A bride had posted that she had got her dress, and the next day she didn't like the dress.
Oh, I saw that.
You saw that? Mm-hmm. I was like, oh no.
And this is why it's important that you go with like people who are honest but not mean and don't want to pull your spirit away, like we've discussed before. But anyways,
I mean, can you imagine the psychology going through the head? I'd go crazy. You pick it, and that's it. We're done. We're moving on.
It's good. Hopefully alterations can do something amazing.
I don't have 24 hours to wait to rethink, well, I didn't really like that
It's like when you buy a car and you drive off of the lot. Congratulations, the car is yours. They don't allow you to go home. At least most of them don't. And then just hang out for a week and be like, this wasn't it.
Or they try to get you to buy a more expensive model if you bring it back.
Exactly. So our last tip before we go to commercial break and off to our favorite segment is, you want to share it?
These secrets are just fascinating. Make your guests comfortable.
You do have to make your guests comfortable.
Yes, because having them feel like they're the only people in the world, each individual guest is the only person at the wedding.
Okay, that's not what I mean.
No, but that's what you do, though.
That is what I do. But part of it is making sure that things like, if we're having an outside ceremony or we're tented, that we do have things like blankets and heaters and those types of things if it's cold outside.
That's what I mean.
It's having water stations and cooling areas if it's really, really hot outside. It's also, this sounds like such a silly little thing, but if you're making name cards, I always ask my couples to still send me their like formal list. Their not the cutesy little things. I want their formal list of who's sitting where. Okay. Because sometimes things happen. Okay. Wind may remove one. You may have thought you wrote it, and in that last minute you didn't. And then Aunt Sally can't find her seat. Or even worse, sometimes I've seen people pick up the wrong card.
Yes.
And by the time they bring it back, because their wife is like, why did you pick this up?
Total confusion.
Yeah. So I always like to have the master lists. If somebody comes up to me, I always assure them that they're on the list.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Let me find you your seat. Or even we've had times where somebody's walked over and somebody didn't know how to count. So there's one less seat there. Yep. And we always just, we take the blame. We smile. We apologize. We even go and get them a drink as the night goes on, just to try to make it up for them because, we are human. It's an honest mistake.
Stuff like that is definitely a secret that you keep and you pass it on to your underlings that work for you. At our wedding, I'm sure I told you the story before where we made two lists.
Can't.
With the Susan's side and Sam's side, and they both had table 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we thought that's perfect. We got everything done here.
He has gotten better as the years have gone on. He's been married for a very long time.
And we handed in the list, and they didn't think anything of it until the day of the wedding. They were like, how can we have 2 table 2s? It was funny until we got to the facility, and they said, you don't have to...
I've had a wedding once where very specifically the bride had set up the tables and somebody at that table didn't like the table they were next to, so they just switched the numbers, not realizing that one table had like 11 people and the other table had 7.
What sort of confusion did that cause?
And the bride knew instantly who did it. She even said for me to walk over and say something, and I said there was a reason why, and I just switched them back. And I didn't say the things that came out of the bride's mouth, but I understood. I listened to the frustration.
See, Sam, I am full of a great deal of wisdom.
You're full of it. You really are.
I know. So I can't believe that this is, basically the end of our season 3. So should we raise our glasses, say cheers?
Cheers! Chink, 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 chink.
Yeah, we don't. You're in a styrofoam cup and I'm in a plastic cup.
But I got alcohol. I got real alcohol in it today. We should do a whole entire episode totally intoxicated.
Oh, no. We could literally never release that episode. So anyways, if you remember... if you're listening to our podcast, if you would like to send a message, have us cover something that you need to have covered, you can go to our Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast page on anchor.fm and select message, and your message will be recorded and aired on future podcast episodes. Remember, you can download us for free wherever you get your favorite podcast, because over the last few years, we have learned all of the places to put our podcast, and it has been accepted every single time.
Yes, they have. And just before we leave, I just want to remind you that since the beginning of the year, the official New Bride Name Change Kit is a complete name change kit for new brides and same-sex marriage couples, containing instructions, checklists, all government forms for you to complete, plus labels for your envelopes, and it's customized to your state and local jurisdictions. It's the beginning of the year, so this is a great time to go get it.
Order it, get it in your house.
That's right. Get it ready. Everything you need, just open the pretty pink box box that you'll get, and you'll be ready to go from Miss to Mrs., Mr. to Mr., whichever way you're going to do
Mrs. to Mrs.?
Without any hassle. The official new bride name change kit. Use the Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast link in the show notes of this episode. Visit atmosphere-productions.com, select the podcast link, and click on the namechangekit.com banner. Clicking that banner doesn't cost you anything, but if you do make a purchase, you will help compensate us and keep this podcast alive. Now we're going to have Ruby.
She's still here. She hasn't quit yet.
I know.
We've been working on it, but it's not.
She's going to thank all our sponsors for us.
Thanks to our sponsors, EasyEventPlanning.com, Meadowbrook Estate, Emerge Cosmetics, Here to the Moon Travel, Destination Weddings Unlimited, Dollar Tree, Honey Fund, and the official new bride name change kit.
So thank you, Ruby. We appreciate that. We'll hear much more from Ruby as we go on throughout this year. And we want to thank you for listening.
Absolutely. And Happy New Year. This is going to be an interesting year.
It is. It's
supposed to be the most weddings since 1984. I don't know what happened in 1984, but...
we're definitely going to do a trends episode sometime during this year.
Ooh, we should do a 1984 trends and 2022 trends.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good idea.
So listen up for more.
Okay.
And we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Ta-ta.
The Be Engaged and Inspired Wedding podcast is sponsored by EasyEventPlanning.com. They make planning any event fast and easy. EasyEventPlanning.com. This podcast is produced and copyright by Atmosphere Productions in association with Engaged Connecticut.